I don't know what to say. Prince, stop it. Welcome back. It's been a little while since I filmed anything. I feel like I'm saying this in just about every video lately. And I also have a new camera, which is a new point and shoot that I bought for our trip in the hopes that I might actually be able to capture some decent footage. Anyway, tonight I'm going to go through a list of fruity florals that I have in my wardrobe. This is a category of fragrance that I required some warming up to, put it that way. A lot of the time I put on a fruity floral fragrance and I feel just totally out of character. It just doesn't suit my vibe. I'm a pretty serious person most of the time, although Matt apparently doesn't think so. In fact, he said to me the other day, he was watching a video of mine and he said that I come across a lot different on camera to how I am in real life. And I suppose I am a little bit more serious when I'm talking to a camera and there's no one else in the room and it all just feels a little bit, you know, kind of awkward, I guess. Anywho, what was I talking about? Oh yeah, fruity florals. Not typically my sort of style of fragrance that I gravitate towards, just because, I don't know, I feel like I'm too serious for it. But despite that, I discovered that I actually have quite a few in my wardrobe, and I'm sure that there are many more. But I would say that if I'm in the mood for a fruity floral, these are the ones that I would sort of think of first. Now, these are all just full bottles. I'm not including any sort of samples or decants or anything like that. Some of them might actually be considered cheapers. We're just going with it. First up, Patty Patty by Chanel. Oh, that focused really nicely. Look at that. Patty Patty by Chanel is a citrusy rose fragrance. Actually, I would mostly consider this to be sort of a rose patchouli, but there is so much citrus in here that it does come off a little bit fruity. And when I first smelled this, I thought it might have even had something like a strawberry note or something like that in here. But no, apparently it's all just citruses, but perhaps that's just a facet of the rose coming through. A really beautiful, elegant fragrance. It doesn't feel young and juvenile at all whatsoever. In fact, it doesn't even really come across as being that flirty either, which is, you know, typically why I might want to gravitate towards a fruity floral in the warmer months, you know, if I'm feeling a little bit, you know, fun. It doesn't project a huge amount, but it actually has pretty good longevity for me on my skin. I feel like I get quite a decent amount of the day wearing this, but it is very light wearing. So if you want something a bit more punchy, this is probably not for you. If you like your fruity florals to be a little more refined and a little bit more toned down, then this one might be one worth checking out. This next one is one that I have not worn or thought about for a very long time, which is kind of criminal because it is a really lovely scent. This is Belle de Jour by Maison Christian Dior. And this one it's definitely a fruity floral. I think this has pear in it and maybe a bit of peach as well. But there's also rose in here. It also has sort of a creaminess to it, and definitely I think I'm detecting vanilla. So this one maybe has a little bit more body than some other fruity florals. It's not that watery style of fruity floral. It definitely has some depth and some texture to it. There's a slight hint of powderiness as well. Very typical of those powdery notes that are present in quite a few of the fragrances from this Dior Privé line. I think they call it Dior Privé now. Yeah, so this is a really lovely light sort of rose fragrance that has a bit of fuzziness from the peach, a lot of juiciness from the pear, but then it also has that creaminess and that powderiness, which gives it a bit more body and texture. So it's not that sort of super fresh, watery, fruity floral, even though it still is a very lovely, light, fresh, fruity floral. Anyway, so that is Belle de Jour by Maison Christian Dior. Next up is another one that I haven't mentioned for quite some time, but I have worn it fairly recently because I actually wore it to Office Works, which is our sort of local office supplies store, and the lady behind the counter complimented me on my fragrance and asked me what it was and asked me to write it down for her. So look, I'm feeling pretty good about myself because of that, because I hardly ever get compliments on my fragrances, except for Matt. I mean, Matt compliments me, but not all the time. In fact, sometimes it's really hard to get a compliment out of him. So when I get an unsolicited compliment from Matt, yeah, I feel pretty good about it. And when I get an unsolicited comment from somebody in the public who I don't know, that's like, it just never happens. So this is Ralph Lauren Woman. It's not the Intense. You know what? I haven't tried the Intense yet, the one in the black bottle. I'm kind of keen to try it and see what it's like. I guess I haven't tried it because the thing that kind of put me off this one for a long time was the opening is so sweet. In fact, the opening is so sweet that I hardly ever wore it. And then it wasn't until I wore it recently that I realized that actually, yes, the opening is very sweet, but the dry down is not overly sweet. The dry down on this is very, very pleasant. So this is a tuberose fragrance. I think this might also have pear. I think there's some other fruity notes in here though, because I feel like I'm getting something a little bit more, with a bit more color than a pear, you know, something a purpley fruit or a berry or something. But anyway, it's very, very, very sweet in the opening, but then it sort of dries down to more of a woody tuberose fragrance, which I really, really appreciate. And I had totally underestimated this fragrance for a very long time. And now I'm kind of eating my words. And so I have actually pulled this out of my perfume wasteland section of my cupboard and have put it in my regular rotation section. And yeah, I have worn it a few times. I'm really enjoying it. So that is Woman by Ralph Lauren. My lid, it has gone a little bit skanky. It's not as nice and shiny as it used to be, but it works just fine because it smells great. So that is Ralph Lauren Woman. No fruity floral video would be complete without mention of this next one. This is Delina, and in particular for me, Delina La Rosée, because that is the one that I prefer. In fact, Fritz, he's knocking the camera. In actual fact, Fritz, stop it. I have been wondering lately whether I should consider moving on my Delina exclusive because I just haven't been wearing it. I haven't really reached for it at all this year, even though I really had a moment with it for the last 2 years, particularly in winter time. But this winter, I didn't touch it at all. And I don't think I even wore it once. So I definitely have a preference for this one because it is lighter and fresher and it's a bit more aquatic, even though I don't typically like aquatic notes. And if I overspray this one, I don't enjoy it as much because those aquatic elements really come out if you overspray this fragrance. But you don't need to overspray it because it is very strong, it's very long lasting. It's just a very fresh, watery, it does have that very rosy, peony sort of vibe about it. And it just has, for me, the right amount of sweetness. It's not overly sweet and the sweetness isn't sort of vanillic. Hello, Fritzy. And I would say that this is definitely, out of all the Delinas, this is my Delina. But I will also caveat that with it, even though I classify this as my Delina and the one that I most enjoy smelling, I still find that when I wear this, I feel like a bit of an imposter. It doesn't really feel like me because it's just so fruity and there's nothing sort of more aromatic or woody about it that sort of, I don't know, gives it a bit more of a serious tone. Perhaps that's what I'm looking for. I mean, obviously I still love it. Look at the dent that I've put in it. Again, I just don't really feel like me when I wear it. Next up is Sunset Hour by Goldfield Banks. This to me smells like a cocktail. a really fruity cocktail that you would drink on a beach in the height of summer, or at the height of a summer holiday. It's very fruity, it's very sweet. It feels like there's a lot of sugar in here, but at the same time, it also feels a little bit spicy, you know, like when they make a cocktail and they put a little bit of the fruit rind in it, the citrus rind. Maybe that's the benzoin in here. I can't really identify the fruits in here, but apparently there's something called quandong in it. I don't know what quandong is, but if I've had it, then I don't know that I've had it, so I can't even tell you if it smells like that. But it does have a few different fruity notes. I think there's a couple of berries as well in here. It's it's just got that really tropical holiday summer vibe by the beach, sipping a cocktail at sunset or something after a really hot day. When it dries down on me, I do find that the woody notes come out a little bit more, and I think in the past, I've talked about, you know, detecting some kind of aromatic tone in here. It's very subtle, but I think I still get it. I haven't really worn this for several months because it has been winter, but I anticipate I probably will pull this out again in summertime and enjoy it in the heat. That is Sunset Hour by Goldfield Banks. The next one is Nero Assoluto by Roberto Cavalli. Sorry, you're getting a little bit of a reflection from the lights there. But this one I really, really like, and I forget how much I like it until I dig it out of the depths of my wardrobe and start wearing it again. This one I think also has a pear note in the opening, and the florals in here include orchid. So it has that very opulent feel in the florals of this fragrance. But in the dry down, a lot of the fruit sort of dissipates and it ends up being possibly a little bit more on the woody side of the floral. I just think this is such a stunning fragrance. It definitely has a nighttime feel about it. And for the price, I mean, I don't think, well, certainly when I bought this, it was not expensive. In fact, it was definitely less than $100. And again, it just feels, you know, it feels noirish. It is meant to be a nighttime sort of fragrance, and it just has this opulence about it, but also this really addictive quality. Definitely worthy of checking out if you want a floral fragrance that's got a little bit of a fruity twist, but also a very seductive and more mature feel about it. So that is Roberto Cavalli Nero Assoluto. Next up is one that I have talked about a lot, both on Instagram and on this YouTube channel. This is Paradis Lointain by Olibere. This is just such a beautiful, elegant, pretty, fresh, fruity floral fragrance. It has notes of passion fruit in the top. I think there's also maybe a little bit of blackcurrant in here. There's juniper and a few different spices, but nothing too heavy, and they all have this sort of earthy tone to them. So, you know, like turmeric, for instance, a very sort of light but earthy sort of spice. There's honey and moss and sandalwood, and the florals I think might be white florals and ylang ylang, I believe. It does have almost a bit of a tropical vibe to it, but it's not the type of tropical of being, you know, slathered in coconut suntan lotion. It's more like you're in a tropical location, but you're surrounded more by the greenery and the, you know, the dense sort of forest at the edge of the beach. This is one of the first fragrances I reach for when spring begins. So I have dug it out of my wardrobe specifically for next week to be able to start enjoying this as a spring fragrance. Weather-wise, I think we're already there. Spring is here and summer's not too far away, I don't think. But Paradis Lointain from Olibere Parfums. I know I've said this before, but they just know how to do a really elegant, fresh floral fragrance. It's beautiful. Highly recommend checking them out. This is Rose Amazone or Amazone. I'm not sure if it's just Rose Amazone by Hermes. This fragrance is possibly the most elegant and bougie smelling fruity floral fragrance I have ever smelled. It's got a bunch of fruity notes in the top, things like blackcurrant and red currant and mandarin and a couple of other citruses, I think. It's very tart in the opening, so it's not a fruity floral that opens really sweet. There is sweetness there too, but it definitely has a bit of bite to it. Then you have some rose in the mid, I think. I think the floral is predominantly rose in here. There might be a couple of other things as well. And then the base is, again, sort of more woody. There is that slight hint of sort of that Hermes leathery tone to this fragrance, even though I wouldn't necessarily call it a leather fragrance. And I certainly don't think there's any leather or suede or anything listed. But I just feel like leather is just part of the DNA of pretty much most of Hermes's fragrance, particularly from this range. Maybe not Kalesh though, although yeah, maybe there is a little bit in the Kalesh. But the other thing I get in here, and I don't know where it's coming from, maybe it is a leather note, I don't know, but there's almost a bit of a smoky element to this fragrance. Not campfire, but just the slightest hint of, you know, a whiff of smoke that might be from really far away, just mingling in with those fruits and those florals. And the effect of that, it's just so elegant and elevated and formal smelling. So even though this is a fruity floral, and I definitely tend to wear it more in the summertime or in the warmer months and mostly in the daytime, but if I put this on, you know, I feel like I can't just be wearing a wrinkly old t-shirt and jeans. I kind of feel like I need to upgrade a little bit, maybe put on a nice knit or a collared shirt, but then the shirt has to be steamed so that it's not too shabby looking. Absolutely stunning, elegant fragrance. That is Rose Amazon by Hermes. And then finally is one that I really enjoy, but I'm still kind of trying to make up my mind about it at this point. This is Lust in Paradise Riviera by Ex Nihilo. So this one is a limited edition flanker of the Lust in Paradise, which is part of their regular line. I have never smelled that one, so I can't even compare them. But my understanding from what I've heard about Lust in Paradise is that it's a sort of a rose, peony, lychee scent that is, you know, very reminiscent of Delina. This has more white florals in it, so I get more of a white floral vibe from this. I think there probably is still that rose and peony in there as well. It almost has a bit of a, it definitely, I see similarities between this and Fleur Narcotique as well, which I didn't actually enjoy that much, but that's the one that a lot of people talk and rave about. This one, yeah, I think is more white floral base. It has a slightly tropical feel to it. Again, I haven't smelled the original Lust in Paradise, so I don't know if that also has that element to it. But this is also very musky, so there is a lot of those really clean, crisp, musky notes in here that are quite synthetic, I want to say, even though I feel like the scent profile of this just generally is just beautiful. Totally up my alley, being white floral focused. The reason I'm on the fence about it is I feel like a lot of those musky notes are quite loud and they lean a little bit on the screechy side, and so consequently I sort of find this a little bit hard to wear sometimes, and particularly, you know, I want to wear it in the high heat because it's that kind of fragrance. It's very airy and light and pretty, but at the same time, in the high heat, I feel like that amplifies that sort of screechiness of these white musk notes. So I'm really torn because I do actually really love the scent profile of this one, and this bottle was not cheap. There is somebody I know who would love to do a swap with me and pick this one up, and I am seriously contemplating that because I don't gravitate that much towards it. There is a bit of a dent in this bottle, but that's because I took a decant for the lady who works at my dry cleaners, because the first day that I got this, I wore it and I went to pick up my dry cleaning. She was raving about my perfume the whole time time I was there. She raved about it so much that I felt like I owed her a bit of the perfume at the end of the day, particularly because you can't get it here. You have to buy it from overseas. So anyway, that was a very long ramble. I really adore this fragrance. I just wish that they would tone down those synthetic musks in these fragrances, because you know, the scent profiles of the ex nihilo perfumes that I've smelled have all been really lovely, but it's like they're trying to make a really beautiful, subtle, light, airy scent profile into something loud and really invasive, and I just don't think it needs that. Personally, I feel like these fragrances would be much more approachable and wearable if they could just tone that down a little bit. Anyway, that is Lust in Paradise Riviera by Ex Nihilo. All right, I'm going to leave it there. Thank you so much for watching. As always, if you enjoyed it, please do give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.